Now, this is where the work is, which is now we need to tell which decision do you think this company would take if they are risk neutral, or they are risk lover, or they are risk averse, or they are sore losers. Because the question can ask you in that terms instead of asking Maximax, Maximin, Minimax, or expected value. So we need to know what would the company do under each of these scenarios. So let's look at the first scenario, which is when they are risk neutral. In that case, we need to calculate the expected value. Which means we're going to calculate expected value for each decision, for each possible decision. And what do? Select, our criteria will be select decision with the highest expected value. To select decision with the highest expected value. That is what we want to do for this scenario. So I'm going to be breaking it down like that in steps for you so that it doesn't look complicated or confusing for you. Yeah, because remember what we are saying is that we know that there will be several possible outcomes. Yeah, however, we need to know what decision we need to take, and the decision we take will depend on our risk personality. So those 4 questions now are different personalities of risk. So under each personality, what decision would they take? So if you want to use expected value, I'll break it down into steps for you so that you know how to approach such questions without getting routed. So for this one, if it is expected value, the first thing you want to do is to calculate expected value for each decision. So that's step 1. So let's do that quickly. We know that these are decisions 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Those are the decisions that we are doubting which ones we are uncertain, right? So what is the expected value for decision 1? Do it. So for decision 1, you know the possible outcomes and the probability. And you can have the expected value, right? So the possible outcomes, either we're able to sell 10 or sell 20 or sell 30. And that will give profit of, each scenario is 200 that we got as the profit I will get. If you remember, go to your payoff table. This is it, this part. So under those 3 different possible outcomes is the same figure. And we know the probability. I think we got, where do we do it? Yeah, 0.3, 0.5, and 0.2. So 0.3, 0.5, and 0.2. So everything equals to 1, which is what we expect. So expected value is outcome multiplied by probability. So this will be 60, this will be 100, and this will be 40. And the total is 200 still, which obviously you expect because for each outcome it's been 200, 200. So you already know that expected value for decision 1 is 200. What about decision 2 now? Do that. Decision 2 is when you are trying to buy 20 as inventory, which is this part. So what's the expected value for decision 2?
For 10,
okay,
it's 6.
So we have 10, 20, 30. So your expected value, if I put it here, said this one is 6.
Then 200 for 20.
200 for 20.
And then 80 for 30.
80. Let's see how you call that. So if this is the outcomes, the profitability coming from those possible outcomes is 20, 400, and 400. Yeah, from this. And the probability remains the same. 30% chance of selling 10 units, 50% chance of selling 20 units, and 20% chance of selling 30 units. And that gives those expected values. So which means your total expected value is 286. Let's move to the third decision, which if we decide to buy 30, what is the expected value? 10, 20, 30 with a profit of minus 60 to 2,600. The same probability, 0.3, 0.5, and 0.2. What do we have?
Minus 48.
I got negative 48.
Minus 48.
110.
110.
And 120.
120. And total?
182.
182. So those are the expected values. In fact, we can bring it together to say decisions, then expected value. So decision 1, decision 2, decision 3. This is giving us 182. This one is giving us 286. And this is giving us 200. So if they are risk neutral, or we say if they are using expected value approach, what decision should they take? That's what the question is asking us. What decision?
So decision 2.
Decision 2, which is to do what?
To buy 20 units.
Buy 20
20
units.
units.
To them, that is the best decision. Buy 20 units. The second part is if they are risk seeker. So if they are risk lover, that means they will be maxing. And that is Maximax. And what does that mean? It means that this will check all the scenarios, all the decisions available. Yeah. Let me break it down into steps for you. Like I said, the first thing is you need to get your payoff table again, which we already have anyway. So get your payoff table. Then the next step is to look for a decision that will give the highest possible outcomes. Or let me just say select decision. Select decision with a possible highest outcome or best outcome. So let's go to our payoff table. These are our payoff table. If you are maxing, which one do you think we would take?
30?
What's it?
Would it be 30 units?
30 units, okay. That is 30, yeah, because look at it. These are the possible outcomes: 220 minus 160, 200, 200, 400, 400 to 2,600. The highest is 600. And that's what we said about risk lovers. They don't care about any circumstance. They just want a decision that stands a chance of giving the highest possible outcome. And the highest possible outcome in our payoff table is 600. And in that case, the decision that can give us 600 is the third decision, which is buy 30. So for Maximax, the decision would be to buy 30 units. Third guy, the risk averse, that is Maximin. So under Maximin approach, what do we have to do? We have to determine the worst case scenarios. And I'm going to do it in steps again. So I will say step 1, payoff table as usual. I'm repeating it now as well. So it helps you when you're practicing as well. So it comes to your head that we're always going to our payoff table for those 3, Maximin, Maximax, and the third one, Minimax, we'll say it. So payoff table is always the starting point. We'll go to our payoff table. Then based on our payoff table, we need to determine the worst possible outcome from each decision. So determine the worst possible outcome. That is worst case scenario. Worst possible outcome from each decision. So let's do that quickly before we go to the next step. Look at our payoff table. For decision 10, what is the worst case? Worst output that we can get? Worst outcome for decision 1?
It's all the same, so 200.
200.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only 200. There is no other option there. For if we take decision 2, what is the worst outcome we can have?
20.
Fantastic. And if we take decision 3, what's the worst outcome we can have?
160, negative 160.
Negative 160. Exactly. That's what we want to do. So we need to come up with those decisions and the worst case. So when we buy 10, the worst case is 200. If we decide to buy 20, the worst case is 20. If we decide to buy 30, the worst case is minus 160. So we already know our worst case scenarios. And this guy is saying, I am maximizing my minimum scenarios. So which means the decision is the third step. Yeah? And decision will be to select best of them. Best of step 2. And in that case, what decision are we going to take? Buy how many units?
10.
Buy 10
10.
units. Thank you. That is Maximin. The last one is the Minimax, which is the guy that want to minimize his regrets. And that's where we'll end it today. So tomorrow we'll look at the other methods of risk management and we'll complete risk and uncertainty. Next week we'll go into budgeting. So we want to look at the third possibility, and fourth one, the last one. And that is Minimax. Minimax wants to minimize his regrets. That's what he wants to do. And regret is opportunity cost, which is a opportunity forgone, benefit forgone, benefit missed out. He doesn't want to see himself to have missed out on huge opportunity, on huge potential, on huge profit. He doesn't want that. So we're still going to break it down to steps. Yeah. Step 1 will still be our usual payoff table. So you can see that you need to be comfortable with building your payoff table, because if your payoff table is wrong, you just waste your time for all the remaining calculation. And the step 2 will be for each decision, we need to calculate the loss for not taking the best decision for that outcome. So what we're saying is, if we decide to buy 10, right? There are 3 possibilities. We can sell 10 because the demand is 10. Demand can also be 20, and demand can also be 30. However, what we are saying is that if we buy 10, under the first possibility, which is demand is 10, what is our regret for not taking other decisions? What is the other decision? Buy 20 or buy 30. If the demand is 10, do you think we will ever regret of not buying 20? Before even going into calculation, think about it so that you can start understanding the differences between those 3. If we buy 10 and demand is 10, that's our decision. But are we going to regret of not buying 20 if the demand is at 10? No.
No.
Because there's nowhere to even sell the extra. We won't regret even buy 30. Never. Because the demand is 10. However, if you go to the second possibility, which is when the demand is 20, if we buy 10, do you think we'll regret of not taking decision of buying 20? We will have regret because demand in the market is 20. We will be looking at, wow, we missed out on extra 10 units of sales. But if we buy 30 and the demand is 20, are we going to have regret? Of course, because we've bought more than we need. So there will be a loss. We'll be like, oh, why did I buy 30? I should have just bought 20 because demand is 20. Because for extra 10 that I've bought at 20. Now I'm only making scrap of $2 on each of them. So there will be regret. So that is the understanding that we want to use now. So let me just put it down for you in writing before we go into calculation. So I'm saying that for each decision, so whether it's buy 10 or buy 20 or buy 30, for each of those decisions, you have to calculate your loss, opportunity cost. Yeah. So calculate the loss for not taking the best decision. So it's about your decision. The loss for not taking the best decision under each possible outcome. Remember, there are 3 outcomes. So for each decision, we'll be asking ourselves, what are we losing for not taking the best? Yeah. So which means we need to develop, what we're saying is that we need to create an opportunity cost table. That's what we want to create now. So for each decision, buy 10 or buy 20 or buy 30. What is our regret for under each condition? What is our regret? That is what we want to do. Okay. So let's do that step 2 first. And let's go to our payoff table now. Yeah. So look at our payoff table here. Now we need to use that payoff table to build our opportunity cost table, because we want to know the opportunity cost for each decision and under individual scenario, which is the possible outcome. Now, let's look at the first one, decision 1, which is buy 10. If we buy 10 and the demand in the market is 10, are we losing out on buying 20 or on buying 30? Do we lose anything? Is there any regret?
So.
No,
No.
because the best outcome is actually with 10. We are not regretting anything. We are better off, because if we are taking 20 decision, we'll be making just 20 profit. And if we are taking a decision to buy 30, we'll even be making a loss of minus 160. So which means if we take decision to buy 10 and the outcome is 10, there is no regret. 200 minus 200 is 0, because 200 is the best outcome. Whereas under the same decision, if the outcome is that the market is asking for 20, do you think there is a regret of not taking 20 decision or 30 decision? Which
Yes.
there's a regret. What is the best outcome if the market is asking for 20? What's the best outcome?
To buy 20, the 400.
400. This is the best outcome under the outcome of possible selling 20. So which means if we had bought just 10 units, we will regret, why didn't we buy 20 units for God's sake? Why? We would have made 400. That's a greedy man speaking. Sore loser. He wants the maximum benefit. Why? He will be eating himself like, why? So his opportunity cost is that 400 minus what he made. Look at him. Not that he didn't make any money. He actually made 200. But the day he discovered that he could have made 400, his life changed and became a sad man, because he believed that he has lost 200. If the market is asking for 30 units, do you think we'll regret not buying 20 or not buying 30? What is the best outcome under this scenario if market is asking for 30?
400.
400, right?
If the market is asking for 30.
Yeah, because the maximum is now 600. So he's looking at, now market is asking for 30. There is a potential 600 profit I would have made. I only made 200. So he's sad because he has lost 400. The same thing now, do for 20 for me and tell me your figures. If you decide to buy 20 and the market is asking for 10, will you think you've made the best decision, or there's a better decision that you have made? And what is your regret?
So the regret will be 180, right?
You got 180? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Carissa to 180. Everyone 180?
Yes.
Fantastic. Go ahead. The next one?
0.
0.
Wow. Awesome. What about the next one?
200.
200. Exactly. Because if you buy 20 and the market is asking for 10, the best outcome would have been to make 200, and the decision would have been to buy 10. So there's a regret because we only made 20 and would have made 200. So we are regretting losing out by 180. If market is asking for 20, luckily for us, buying 20 is the best outcome. So there is no regret. In that case, 0. And if market is asking for 30, we have made 400 on our decision. But the best decision, if the market is asking for 30, is to buy 30 so that you can make the maximum profit available of 600. So there's a regret of 200. For 30, what are the regrets?
Got 364.
360.
Then 180, then 0.
180 and 0. Thank you. So that's step 2, opportunity cost table. Once you've done this, you sorted. Because step 3 is easy, even much easier, which is just to determine your maximum opportunity cost for each decision. Remember, each of these are all opportunity costs for each decision. So you want to determine the maximum opportunity cost for each decision. So let's get the maximum opportunity cost. So for decision 1, what's the maximum opportunity cost?
400.
400, fantastic. Next.
200.
And the last
200.
one?
360.
360.
360.
So this is the maximum opportunity cost for each decision. But remember, this guy is a minimax. So now he has gotten the max behind it, which is the maximum opportunity cost, the maximum regret from each decision. But what does he want to do? He wants to minimize that. And that is step 4, which is to select decision with the minimum opportunity cost. And with this example, what decision are we going to be taking?
Buying
2,
20.
12, 20. The minimum.
Exactly. So which means we're going to buy 20. And that is it.